My name is Jim Moran. I'm Director of Outreach here at the Antiquarian Society. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all to home Antiquarian Hall and to ask as we get started that you turn off any devices that may ping or ding or otherwise notify you and annoy the rest of us. As many of you know, the American Antiquarian Society is a great national research library and a limited society with a three-pronged mission. The first part of that mission is to collect one copy of everything printed in this country before the year 1876. And to that end, we have about 4 million books, pamphlets, broadsides, newspapers, manuscripts, images, and all kinds of ephemera stored in this building on 25 miles of shelving. That collection includes 2/3 of everything printed before 1820, the largest such collection of such material anywhere in the world. The second part of our mission is to preserve these materials. We keep the originals and have a conservation lab in this building to restore them and to ensure that they stay in the best condition possible. And the third part of our mission is to make this material available for study. Tonight's program concerns this third part of our mission. Since the early 1970s, the Society has offered fellowships to academic scholars who come to conduct research in the library for periods from 1 month to 1 year. And 20 years ago, we expanded our fellowship offerings to include people other than professional scholars. In short, anyone creating original work about pre-20th century America designed for the general public. We call these fellowships the Creative and Performing Artists and Writers Fellowships. And we inaugurated it 20 years ago this year with a grant from the Lila Wallace Reader's Digest Foundation. When that funding ended, we secured generous support from the William Randolph Hearst Foundation, the Charlotte and Robert Barron, and Deborah and Jay Lax. And we have continued to run this very successful program for 20 years and counting. Since its inception in 1995, 91 people working in all kinds of artistic disciplines from throughout the United States have come to the library and conducted research for historical works designed, as I said, for the general public. They have included novelists and short story writers, poets, playwrights, filmmakers, visual artists, book artists, sculptors, dancers and choreographers, I should say, performance artists, journalists, nonfiction authors, musicians, radio producers, bloggers, and cartoonists, among others. To celebrate the program's 20th anniversary, I've asked former artist fellows, Nicole Cooley and Maureen Cummins, to come back and share with us a project that they have collaborated on together. It is a project that grew out of their being fellows here, even though they were not fellows at the same time, and they'll explain that in a few minutes. But it is nevertheless a fascinating one and one based upon materials found here at AAS. Let me introduce both of these artists to you before they speak, and then I'll turn the program over to Maureen, who will speak first. Nicole Cooley is a poet and writer whose work includes 4 books of poetry: Milk Dress, published in 2010, Resurrection, 1996, The Afflicted Girls, 2004, and Breach, 2010. The novel Julie Garland, Ginger Love, published in 1998, and various scholarly works are among her works. Her work has appeared in such journals as Poetry, Field, Plowshares, Poetry Northwest, the Paris Review, PEN America, the Missouri Review, The Nation, and Pedagogy. Her awards include the Walt Whitman Award from the Academy of American Poets for her first book, Resurrection, a Discovery/The Nation Award, a National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship, and the Emily Dickinson Award from the Poetry Society of America. Nicole researched the Afflicted Girls at AAS while a Creative Artist Fellow in 1999. We're selling copies of this work here tonight, and Nicole will be happy to autograph them after the formal program is over. Nicole is also the director of the MFA program in Creative Writing and Literary Translation at Queens College, SUNY, where she is a professor of English. Maureen Cummins is a book artist who has created over 25 limited edition artist books. Her work is held in over 100 permanent public collections internationally and has been included in exhibitions at the American Craft Museum, the Zimmer Mill Art Museum, the Rotunda Gallery, the Corcoran Gallery of Art, the Art Complex Museum, and the Brooklyn Museum, among others. Maureen has received over a dozen grants and awards and has held various artist residencies. She was a Creative Artist Fellow in residence at AAS in 2000. Please join me in welcoming back to AAS Nicole Cooley and Maureen Cummins.
Thank you so much, Jim, and thank you, AAS, everyone at AAS who has made, along with Jim, has made this Creative Arts Fellowship possible. It literally, for me, was a changing point in my career, coming here. And I'd like to tell the story briefly of how I got here, and then I want to tell the story of how I met Nicole. I was a Creative Arts Fellow in the fall of 2000. Up until that point, I've been working as a visual artist, diving into dumpsters, flea markets, and antique shops. I was going anywhere I could to find found ephemera and text and old photographs, and I was altering them and taking apart books and doing interesting things with these materials. And I'd say I was working that way for about 5 years, and then I discovered that there was this place that had been collecting stuff for hundreds of years and had millions of books and playing cards and maps and so on, and that was AAS, and that they offered a fellowship to pay you to come and live on site and pour through books all day. It was like the nerd's dream come true. I couldn't even believe this place existed, and I was so desperate to come here. And I also knew that AAS was this very grand place. I saw photographs, and it was in New England. It was very buttoned up, and so I thought, okay, I have to apply with something very, very important, something very buttoned up, and I did that. My application, my proposal must have been so boring, I cannot even remember what it was. And when the rejection came back, in my memory, it's like the rejection came back like almost immediately. I was actually relieved. Like, when you're relieved to be rejected, it was just not a good idea. So I said, okay, I got rejected, giving them the very important buttoned-up proposal, so let me now propose what I really want to do. And I submitted a proposal for a project, the title of which was Animals, Cannibals, and Savages, Witches, Bitches, and Faggots, The History of Discrimination in America. And I was in immediately, like, thanks to Jim Moran. So I found my nerd's paradise. I was so happy. I was here for a whole month. Researching the history of discrimination, and actually 5 projects have come out of that 1 month that I spent at AAS 15 years ago. Also 3 babies came out, but we'll get to that later. So while I was here, I was looking at a lot of slavery material, I was looking at women's history material, I was looking at a lot of stuff to do with mental hospitals. And then I discovered this treasure trove. It was like back in that microfilm room on that back wall of Salem Witch Trial microfilm material. And I became obsessed with that for about a whole week of my stay here. And I remember the first librarian I asked for one of these microfilms, she said, "Oh, you must know Nicole Cooley." And then the second librarian asked for something, she said, "Oh, you must be friends with Nicole Cooley." Then the third librarian said, "Oh, Nicole Cooley took this is it? Finally, I'm like, who is this Nicole Cooley? And I found out that she had been here about a year before me, and she'd like looked at every single thing that I'd looked at in those microfilms. And I said, okay, I've got to contact her. In my memory, I sent her an email, but she tells me that I actually sent her a written letter. That's how long ago this happened. I sent her a letter in the mail. So we met in a coffee shop in the city after my residency was over, and I thought we'd be in there talking about AAS and what a wonderful place AAS was for about, 45 minutes. We were in there like 3 hours, and by the time we left, we decided to collaborate on the project together. So that's the story of how we met. And I'm going to turn it over to Nicole. She'll tell you a little bit more about perhaps what she had been doing here at AAS and about the history, the actual history of Salem.
So I really did write a letter to Maureen, and I can vividly, Maureen wrote me a letter, I can still see myself opening the envelope in my apartment. I was like, who is this woman writing me a letter about the Salem Witch Trials? And now she's my dear friend. So I want to thank Jim Moran for the chance to come back and speak to you all today. Thank you all for coming out to think about Salem Witch Trials with us and to hear us talk about the beautiful book, which is right there, and to read from it. I'll just say a few things about my time at AAS. I knew I wanted to write a book about the Salem Witch Trials when I came, and my book was The Afflicted Girls, which is a separate project. But what I loved most about being here was just the freedom to explore. So I came in with this really tightly defined project. I want to look up this person, and this person, the trials. But I found myself like back in the microfilm room looking at grave rubbings, or looking at all these church documents, or reading, menus of what people were eating for dinner in 1692. And it was that material, that freedom to find that material here, which was so marvelous. And the wonderful suggestions by the librarians where you might want to go look at this, you might want to look at this. I found that they really expanded my project. And I was here in the summer of 1999 with a number of historians, and so I decided to try to work like the historians. So I did what the historians did, which is I transcribed documents all day. I just typed them into my laptop, and I went home with like hundreds of pages of transcribed history, which I then turned into poems. So it was a really magical summer. It was wonderful to be here, and I'm really happy to be back. So a little bit of background on Salem before we get started. In late 1691, in the middle of a cold, bleak New England winter, several young girls from Salem Village refused to eat. They choked. They lost their powers of speech, sight, and hearing. They claimed they were bitten and pinched by unseen bodies. Based on their array of symptoms, a doctor made the diagnosis: the evil hand is upon them. Thereafter, they would be known as the Afflicted Girls. "Who torments you?" the Reverend Samuel Paris asked, and the girls began to answer. In the summer of 1692, 19 people and 2 dogs were executed by hanging. 1 man was pressed to death with stones, and more than 150 people were sent to prison, where several, including a baby born in jail, died. The story officially concluded in 1706, when Anne Putnam, one of the girls who accused others, confessed that she had lied and publicly acknowledged her guilt. She was the only accuser to ever confess. In the 17th century, writer Cotton Mather wrote of Salem, "No place that I know of has got such a spell upon it as will always keep the devil out."
So I want to draw everyone's attention to the slides. I'm going to briefly show a series of images of the book that Nicole and I created, Salem Lessons. This is a reproduction on slate. On the left-hand reproduction of the title page of the original copybook that inspired the project itself. Nicole mentioned that one of the things that's so exciting about being in here for a month and having that complete freedom is that you find things that you're not expecting. I went into that microfilm room, I spent days and days in there, and I thought I was going to use those materials. What I ended up being most inspired by was this copybook that was kept. Copybook was a penmanship book. It was kept by this 10-year-old boy, Josiah Peel, in 1809 and 1810. That was 100 years after the trials. And he kept this book in Salem, and to me it spoke so powerfully about the psychic reverberations of the trial, the effect on the population even a century later. It seemed appropriate to print on the slate. The right-hand side is playing off of that. So I used the same calligraphy and I replicated the handwriting of Josiah's, only in this case used placing our names there instead. Now, as I mentioned, these sayings in the book were what inspired me. They were so fire and brimstone. I'm going to read an excerpt from the prospectus advertising the book that describes these sayings that were written over and over again by this young boy. The sayings images from Salem Lessons are from a child's penmanship book kept by a 10-year-old Salem boy, Josiah Peel, during the years 1808 and 1809. The sayings contained here were nothing like the innocent homilies usually found in copybooks of the time, such as "do unto others as you would have others do unto you." These were stern and biblical commandments: abandon evil company, fear to do evil, deal justly with all, do nothing wicked, that spoke directly to the catastrophic events a century before. Thus, Guide Your Tongue inspired a poem about Sarah Good, whose open defiance and damning words in the face of Judge Hathorne, "God will give you blood to drink," sealed her fate. Mind Your Book prompted a poem about Good's 12-year-old accuser, Ann Putnam Jr., who swore she had signed the Devil's Book, but 14 years later requested a book of my confessing, in which she wrote, "I desire to lie in the dust and earnestly beg forgiveness." So here is "Cease to Do Evil." Each of the poems, the title of the poem is in red on the facing page. This is John Louder, who was the accuser of Bridget Bishop. Another shot, you can see how the page is about to open, and now it opens. This is another poem in the book, but that page opens and reveals the poem inside. This is "Never Tell a Lie." Do you remember what it was? She was a woman, I forgot her name, but she refused to lie, and she was condemned and was executed. The pattern at Salem was that if you went along and you confessed, you were let off, but if you defied the judges, you were executed. That was the general pattern. So you can see the poem here. I think this is a good opportunity for Nicole to talk a little bit about how the actual original found text inspired the poem. So in a way, as a visual artist, I saw the creation of this book as a kind of anti-traditional book, in that the illustration actually inspired the text rather than the reverse.
Yeah, I mean, you know, writing is always such a, or is thought about as such a solitary act. And I had written a collection of poems, The Afflicted Girls, about the Salem Witch Trials. So my initial thought was like, oh great, I can just use my extra ideas on this project with Maureen that I didn't get to use. But it's very, very different working with someone else. And I fell in love with the sayings. They were so strange, as you said, fire and brimstone, right? I mean, I wish we could have written a 500-page book with more of these sayings, really, because they're so fascinating. So the phrases would really animate the language and inspire the poem for me. And so we would work together to sort of pair up people from the trials and the sayings. And it was a great chance to investigate and reanimate all of these people from Salem in a different way, and to think about evil and lies and all of that. And I would write home, it would be interesting, and I'd think, this is great, it's perfect, and I'd send it to Maureen, and she'd say, well, and it was a different way of thinking about poems, because it was also about what will this poem look like in an artist book? How will this poem link with the saying? It wasn't just my own poem. And I found that collaborative experience to be very invigorating and enriching. So the poems they're all from the point of view of people in the trials, bystanders, the magistrates, the people who accused, the accusing, Tituba, who is a slave who got blamed for the starting of a lot of it erroneously. And it was really interesting to kind of inhabit those voices and to put myself into those mindsets. I always think that writing is a lot like acting. And you get to inhabit a character and inhabit a voice in wonderful ways. And in this collection of poems, it was really, really fun and interesting to do.
The last slides are about, really show the structure of the book. My conception, and it took quite a while to come up with what the physical book would be. I think I made some reference earlier to the fact that this collaboration spanned 10 years and 3 children. I think we thought we were going to work on the project for about 2 years and have a finished edition at the end, but I'd say it took about a year just for me to envision how the book would work, like physically what the book would be. And my concept was that it would create a circle, because I thought of all of these voices as a kind of chorus, a chorus of voices. Is there? Oh, here is the slide I'm looking for. That all of these people together tell the entire story of the Salem Witch Trials. Here you can see it with the box that it comes in, and if anyone wants to come up afterwards, and you can't really see it in this slide, but the box contains on it the blind stamped are all the marks of the accusers and of the accused at the trial. So most of these people were illiterate. So instead of being able to sign their names, they had a mark. They had some kind of a shape, like it could be like a cross or something that looked like an arrow. It was a mark that was their mark. And when I was first looking through the transcripts of the trials, these marks were so strange looking to me. They looked like magic symbols or devilish symbols, and they just seemed perfect. So they adorned the box containing the poems. Here's the circle of voices. And again, another variation of how the book can be displayed and unfolded, and these sort of interesting relationships between the pages. That's the last slide. So Nicole and I are going to read the poems together, and we're going to read them in a way that we never have before. We've given presentations in which Nicole has read, but tonight we'll be reading them together.
I should also say before we start reading that there's one of the wonderful things about working on this project is there is all of this language that you can use, all of this fabulous, fascinating, scary 17th century language, and a lot of it's in the poems. And you'll be able to see where that language happens. The afflicted girls.
A small spark can make a great flame. A small spark.
Don't open the door to childhood where light breaks in the windows, lead and origins. We've walked out of that house forever to this clearing in the woods where we light a fire. Don't touch the mourning ring with its inscription, live to die. Mary was given for her mother. Forget the slice of pine, the wood in Elizabeth's hand as she prayed for her mother's fever to break. Here's the dollhouse Abigail built from bark for puppets sewn with rags and pins. Their blank faces echo the village women. We tie a string to loop around a tiny finger. Imagine how our voices will burn the walls of the meeting house, how the men will listen, how rope scrapes soft skin and a line of teeth marks a girl's arm, how our mothers have all left us, but the prince of lies can crush the past in his fist. The Reverend Samuel Paris.
When the world says you are wise and good, ask if it be true. When the world says
all winter in the meeting house, the leading family sits up front, women separate from the men. The only heat comes from their bodies. I opened my sermon book, began, hypocrites are the sons and heirs of the devil, the freeloaders of hell, whereas other sinners are but tenants. The lesson taught is, we are all spiritual merchants. Just as I once leased ships and traded tobacco, dried fish, Guinea Coast slaves. The lesson is about profit. My ship was called Fortune of New England. My ship was called Gift of God. My ships were sold before I came to Salem. At home, my wife cannot rise from bed, while my small daughter sits at her side, twisting a rag pocket on her lap. I open my sermon book for family prayer. At night, when I lie beside my wife, her skin is burning. But in my dream, Bridgetown's heat blurs the roads to dust. And there she is, Tituba, the woman I bought just as I paid for cotton at the marketplace. The woman who will rock my child to sleep. I am her owner. I won't let her in my church. The magistrates, John Corwin and Judge Hawthorne.
great men are not always good men. Great men are not always good men.
First, write warrants for the witches named by the girls. Next, seek the direction of heaven. Listen to specter evidence. Hath this woman hurt you? Outside the fields are all untrammeled white. We take that blankness deep into ourselves. Press the subject to confess. The subject must reply. Remember all the laws and ordinances. Remember to fill ourselves with that white. Remember piety, agony of soul. Remember there are evidences to be given. There is belief we must adhere to. With belief we can erase the world beyond this courtroom. And so we force the pregnant woman to plead her belly. How hath this woman hurt you? We wait. The girls rise up together, fall in unison. The girls point to the woman. Her dress is red, dark as a scab. Rebecca Nurse.
Fear to do evil. Fear to do evil.
Cries thread through the trees. far from the thatched roof of my husband's house. Here in Ipswich jail, I lean into the wind, into the glare of light on snow. Swallow cold as I remember my own words spoken to the court. Well, as to this thing, I am innocent as a child unborn. But what sin hath God found out of me unrepented of, that he should lay such affliction upon me in my old age? I follow God. I will not judge another. I will not confess, but I cannot say I am without sin. Now my husband, my sisters wait at the table in the house where I won't return. My bone white plate still set at its edge. In the court, I raise my hands, palms up, and the girls echo. I stand, they rise. Each night they say my specter appears to wake them. Now fear seeps under the door of the house. My sisters bow their heads. On the horizon, nothing but emptiness. Abigail Williams.
Youth is often rash. Youth is often rash.
First I stood outside in the circle of girls, circle of wet snow. In the parlor, my uncle writes his sermon. My aunt lies in bed all day. Tituba sits at the flax wheel. Son of God, my uncle writes. Oh, Holy Ghost. I lean the lug pole across the chimney, then salt meat for supper in the powdering tub. I stand outside the circle of dirt. The girls will not open their hands. Oh, how the father of lies knows this village, my uncle writes, even this family. I know how a candle can drag wax across a table, spelling out each name. How egg in a glass foretells the future. How to invite the invisible world in. I know how to fold the white cloth, lay the silver. My parents are gone. How to open the circle. First, my uncle orders prayers to stop the outbreak. Fits are contagious. The girls are bitten and pinched, our mouths stopped, our throats choked. We are racked, my uncle will say. We are tormented. In the meeting house now, I stand in the middle of the circle. Watch me as I name each name. Bridget Bishop.
Fear vicious men. Fear vicious men.
In the meeting house, their words are a rage of light. Who is it that afflicts you? At the sight of me, the girls fall into fits, saying, Bridget Bishop or her likeness. I step outside myself into the pool of red muslin where I could float. My dress dropped to the floor. I say, I know nothing of it. I am innocent to a witch. I know not what a witch is. The midwife jury searches my body. I close my eyes and force myself to remember the lessons. A husband must rule and govern. A wife must reverence him. God sets thy husband above thee for a reason. A wife is but a conquered land. My body does not belong to me. They say the devil took it for his own. The judge stands before me. How can you know you are no witch, and yet not know what a witch is? And I say, I am clear. If I were any such person, I would know it. My body belongs in the stories the men in the village tell. They say, I came into their bedchamber one morning. He did then see a woman standing between the cradle and the bed. Above the dead of night, he felt a great weight upon his breast, and awakening to clearly see Bridget Bishop. I then being in bed with my wife at Salem, I did then see Bridget Bishop. My body does not belong to me.